Welcome to Good Life. I'm Dean Wilson. Great program today. Kirsten Moore, the head basketball coach at Westmont College. She has an amazing story, story of overcoming, dealing with loss. She's an amazing person. Kirsten Moore, Good Life is next. Welcome to Good Life. I'm Dean Wilson. I'm so glad you joined us today. You can always find all the interviews at goodlifetelevision.org. There's the full form interviews from this last year. There's about 70 of them. And then plus a bunch of what we call power clips, where we kind of take some of the gold, some of the great stories, some of the great moments from those interviews, and we turn them into power clips. So we'd love to have you visit us there. And of course, we're all over social media as well, but we're so grateful to have you with us, and I'm so glad to welcome my guest today. Kirsten Moore is with me. Welcome, Kirsten.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Kirsten is the head basketball coach and associate athletic director at Westmont College here in Santa Barbara, California, where we are. And Kirsten has an amazing story. I'll start with the basketball part, but in 15 years at Westmont, she has a 744 winning percentage, won the first national championship in Westmont College history on the women's basketball program. And a lot of accolades along the way. She played college basketball at Oregon 4 times in the NCAA tournament, and it's an amazing journey she's been on. Most of the incredible part off the basketball court is what I'm going to talk about, but let's start with sports and basketball. Kind of, where'd you grow up, and were you always into sports? Was that kind of always something you were doing?
Well, I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area and in Marin County, just over the Golden Gate Bridge from San Francisco. And grew up in a real blue-collar family, though, even though sometimes you say you're from Marin and people have this idea like,
you're sipping wine.
Right, exactly. Right. Or, think of it maybe like a Montecito type.
Right.
But my parents were super blue-collar. My dad was a union electrician. My mom was an elementary school teacher. They had both grown up in San Francisco in the city itself, and just had timed it right to get to Marin before it kind of became as affluent an area as it is. Yeah. And they were able to raise 4 kids there. I'm the second of the 4, boy, girl. And ever since I can remember, I have just had an affinity for sports. So my parents tell me my first word was ball. My older brother played sports, and so I think, some of it was just kind of growing up and wanting to, he was kind of my hero, and I'd follow him around, just wanted to do what he did. And he played sports, and he was just, he's always just been the kindest big brother, looking out for his sister, for me. And so he was always good to let me tag along and play with the boys all growing up. And so my parents also coached, both my dad and then my mom actually ended up getting into coaching as well. Really? Just, like CYO youth basketball. Yeah. And but my dad was Little League baseball coach, and he drafted every girl in the league. Only 3 girls played Little League baseball, and he drafted every girl on his team, and we won the championship.
Really?
So yeah, but so just coaching parents, and then my brother, and I think it's just in me too. I developed just a love of all sports, but really started honing in on basketball when I went to Lavin basketball camps, actually. And so what's funny, I know you've had John Moore on the show, and it's kind of full circle that I ended up at Westmont.
Wow.
Because, Rachel Lavin running the summer camps, and I used to go work out with her dad, Cap, and obviously God. Steve. And so that was kind of what showed me this passion into, like, I want to play in college. And that's kind of what gave me that dream of playing college basketball, was the exposure I got to it from Lavin basketball camps.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I tried coaching a little bit, YMCA basketball in Dallas, and it was vicious. Oh. I barely survived it.
Yeah.
It was a whole, that's another program.
Yeah.
So you end up, and I have my Oregon Green Ducks tie on without trying. It just naturally happened.
I know I said that when you walked in. I said I like the tie, the Oregon tie. You said I didn't even mean to. You should have played it off like you meant to.
I should have.
You should have, yeah.
It's very duck. So you played Oregon, and you go to the tournament 4 times. I'm sure, you walked on. You ended up becoming the captain and having an amazing experience. Talk about kind of those years.
Yeah, well, I I didn't get recruited out of high school. I had this dream. I really wanted to play in the Pac-10, and but didn't really have the opportunity to get seen. Also, maybe wasn't. I think the strengths that I had wouldn't show up to most coaches that went into a gym and watched. You know, it was a lot of the intangible stuff and my IQ, my passion for the game, my work ethic, my leadership abilities with my teammates, those kinds of things. It was definitely not sheer athleticism. I could definitely shoot the ball, but you know, was not athletic, I would say, for that level. Mm-hmm. And so wasn't really recruited, but just had this dream, and then ended up getting an opportunity to go as a walk-on. And I really felt like if I just got the chance to just get on a team, that I could prove that I could help a team be successful, and whatever that looked like. And you know, for me, that started for sure as like this passion basketball-wise to like do whatever it took to prove myself that I could play at that level, and also to help us win a championship. I went there in just the second year of a new coach's kind of tenure at Oregon, and they had not traditionally been very good. And so it was really, I think, transformational for me to be a part of seeing a program grow over time. From when I first went, I think we're averaging about 1,000 fans a game, and by the time I left, we were averaging over 6,000 fans a game.
Wow!
And had won, and this was, I stayed there and coached for 3 years after, right. So kind of those 7 consecutive years. By the end, we had won back-to-back Pac-10 championships and dethroned Stanford, which was like a huge deal because they were winning, you know, going to Final Fours consistently in those days, and so. Yeah, I think I learned a lot through that process of just seeing kind of that the program develop and being a part of that. I was never the star player or anything like that, but I think that those kind of intangible things that I said did help our team, and that's one of the reasons why, you know, my teammates voted me as captain, and then my head coach asked me to join our staff as a coach after that.
So great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is hard in a workout to show all those intangible things you're talking about. You know, in a workout, in a 3-hour workout or 2-hour workout, I mean, obviously you can see athleticism pretty quickly, but all the other stuff, I mean, that is kind of a tricky thing. Yeah,
and I mean, in recruiting, most of the time, like, you're not even getting to work out. Like, they're not, I mean, they would probably see the work rate that I would practice at would be probably different than most, but when you're just going to a club tournament and, you know, you're just looking for like the player that stands out as the best player on that team or the flashiest player, that was not ever me. That's for sure. So,
who is the Oregon gal who's just is the best player in the country?
Yeah, Sabrina Ionescu.
Okay, she was mentored by Kobe.
Yes,
yep.
Unbelievable
Unbelievable story.
I know.
I saw her speak, I think, at his memorial.
At his memorial. She was, if you have not watched, for those of you watching at home, if you have not watched just her segment of Kobe's memorial, you should watch it. It's because powerful. What she said was really, I think, just so pertinent to just where I think Kobe was passionate about growing and developing in the women's game, and just needing advocates. And I think that was one of the hardest parts. 2020 has been crazy, and when I think about how crazy 2020 has been, to me, it started with Kobe, right? And I think one of the hardest parts for those of us in the women's basketball community was feeling like he was probably the foremost advocate for the women's game that was alive today, and you know, and not having him here anymore. He was just getting started. Exactly.
With Gianna, I mean, we would. So my boys play at Mamba.
Okay.
And so we were down there 2 out of 3 weekends for a while, and we'd see him coaching with Gianna, who was unbelievable. Yeah. But it was such a great story that it felt like we were in the first chapter.
Exactly.
Which
and
is
so
that's the hard part, and that's kind of been lost in this year because, you know,
everything
else happened.
Yeah.
How is this year's team before I kind of get off basketball?
Yeah, I mean, well, we're a work in progress right now. We finally played a game, so that's progress. We had our first game this last weekend, 2 days ago. And I would say, you know, that we're nowhere near as close as good as we could or should be. We return everyone from last year's team that finished ranked number 1 in the country, other than one player, and that one player was definitely a key player. But we've got the pieces to have a phenomenal team this year. Wow. So there have been so many things, and every team in the country is dealing with so many things. So we don't say that as an excuse. It's just it's looked incredibly different than it normally would have because all that everyone's having to work through with COVID.
And will this season, other than not having fans, and there's all the protocols, but is there going to be a full season?
No, not even close.
15 games?
So we've just had our first game on, what was that, December 5th, Saturday. Yeah, so we maybe will have 3, hopefully have 2 more games this week, also against Division Ones. At Westmont, we've taken a pretty hard stance, but I think important stance, that we won't play teams that aren't following a testing protocol that the state of California has set forth. And there's a number of our teams in our conference who are not doing that. So we will not play a normal conference season. We'll play a few of the teams who are also following a testing protocol, but we feel like it's really important to protect the safety of our student athletes, as well as follow the guidelines from the state and trying to do the right thing. So right now, currently, the only non-conference games I have on our schedule are against Division I teams.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then there will be a tournament, hopefully.
There'll be a tournament. It's actually still up in the air whether they will test at that tournament, so it's pretty up in the air whether we will actually get the opportunity to play in that tournament. So we are day to day right now, for sure, not knowing what the next day might hold, but just trying to be our best each day, which I think, will kind of be a theme, and probably as we talk about our story of, kind of my approach to adversity and how I handle that. So, yeah.
So you coached for 3 years in Oregon. You end up at Cal Berkeley as an assistant. Mm-hmm. And then you weren't in the Westmont world here. How did you get to the Westmont world? How did you find out about this?
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, I mean, the short answer is I really believe God brought me here and kind of brought this kind of everything worked together at the right time and to bring me to Westmont. But the story's really that after 4 years at Cal, our head coach was let go. So at that point, then the assistants are looking for places. That still didn't necessarily mean I was looking at making a shift from Division I. I had a lot of opportunities to stay in Division I, and at a high level, having been in the Pac-10 for my whole coaching and playing career. And but I had kind of always thought down the road, when I wanted to have a family, and that I could see myself going to a small, high academic school where I wouldn't have to travel as much, wouldn't have to be away from my family as much. And so I did, but I didn't think that was then. I was still really young, kind of just, kind of moving up and doing well in the career. But then I started getting pursued by actually other teams in the conference to be their head coach. And so within a span of a week, I think I got offered 3 head coaching jobs in the GSAC, and and they were kind of really proactively, and I still didn't think I would do it. I just thought, okay, but I'll go interview just for, and I was upfront with them, hey, I don't think I'm ready to make that move, but I'll interview, I think it'll be a good experience for me or whatever. And so they said, yeah, we still want you to do that. And so while I was at one of these opposing schools, I looked up the morning I was going, I looked up the job board to see what other new Division I postings there were. And there was one new post that day, and it was head women's basketball coach at Westmont College, and it said contact John Moore. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's so funny, John Moore, because I knew. So I pick up the phone and I said, hey John, it's Kirsten McKnight, that was my maiden name. He go, Kirsten, I haven't seen you in years, since Lavin Camp, and he said, what are you doing? And so actually I'm on this way to this other school to interview. He said, you better not say yes till you come visit me and Rachel. So I came and I stayed in his house with him and Rachel and went up and checked out campus. They didn't even have an interview committee ready at Westmont yet for that step in the process. But he just didn't want me to say yes to these others before I at least checked it out, And so they got me a quick, super short couple minutes with the provost, because it was just a spur of the moment, drive by on the way. That's how it started. And kind of, long story short, here I am, 16 years later now.
Yeah. Well, we can't lose you. Dave Odell does tell me the phone rings a lot about you. So, stick around if you can.
I've continued to choose Westmont. It's been an amazing place.
So let's talk about May 9th, 2012. So your husband, Alex, who you met at Westmont, was dealing with Crohn's disease, and he had a surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so my understanding is he has the surgery. He's okay. He sends you home to sleep, or you're in LA. He sends you wherever you were going to sleep.
Yeah.
What happened?
I was actually staying with the head coach at UCLA, Corey Close. Most Santa Barbara people know her from her time here, and so she's a good friend and was amazing through this whole thing. But yeah, we were staying because he was having the surgery at Cedars-Sinai, so it was right there near where she lives, and so she was letting me stay with her. And I was at the time, 7.5 months pregnant, and we were expecting our first kid. And he came out of surgery fine, spent the day with him, but then, end of the day comes and he's like, go home, get a good night's sleep. I was exhausted. He was like, I'm fine. And at about 4 a.m, I was asleep, and I'd set my alarm to get up at 5 anyway to be there for the doctor's rounds. They make the rounds like super early. I wanted to be there the next morning, but I was asleep, and I kind of just felt like my phone kept lighting up. It was on silent other than the alarm, but it just kept like there was a light, and I'm like, what's going on? I'm disoriented, it's like the middle of the night. And finally, it wakes me up enough to look at my phone, and there's bunch of missed calls from the unknown numbers, and then 2 voicemails. So listen to the first voicemail, and it's the surgeon. He says, Kirsten, it's Dr. Fleschner, and I need you to call me right away. Your husband's he's in trouble. He's actually coding right now, and I just need you to call me, and then hang up. So that's the first message, and then I'm just going oh my gosh, what's the second message, and I listen to the second message, and it's the same surgeon. He just says, Kirsten, I'm sorry, but I can't believe I'm making this call, because I've actually not had to do this after a surgery like this before, but your husband didn't make it. So he had a pulmonary embolism, a blood clot. We don't really know still from where. In the autopsy afterwards, they found a lot of blood clots in his body, whether it was from the medication or Crohn's disease. They don't really know, but he'd had and just like that, I was all of a sudden a widow, and 7.5 months pregnant, on the floor of Corey's bedroom, just trying to breathe, and definitely in shock. Nothing really can prepare you for a moment like that,
I mean, this wasn't on the radar at all.
No, I didn't. We had been doing long distance marriage for 4 years, and we didn't even have I didn't have his passwords to his bank accounts as we're still in Missouri, and it was not on the radar at all. Yeah.
So you come home back to Santa Barbara, and what are the early days like for experiencing that kind of loss? How'd you get through?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, the only way I've been able to describe it to people, when that phone, when I'm listening to those voicemails, is it felt like darkness just went and just got dark and quiet and heavy, you're just trying to breathe, literally thinking, breathe. I'm on the floor, and I'm beating my fist in the mat. There was a mattress on the floor, and I'm just there's no way. And then I just kept saying I gotta just breathe and take care of the baby. I gotta breathe and take care of the baby, but it wasn't long. Corey was there, and she was amazing by my side, but she immediately called my best friends from here, who got in a car, this is 4:30 in the morning, and drove down to LA. And before I knew it, a bunch of people from our AD and other coaches and kinesiology faculty are there with me, in Corey's house, and spent the whole day there as I was trying to navigate all the decisions that have to be made in a moment like that. And before that, there's nothing you can say, but just the fact that they were just there,
Right.
and I just wasn't by myself. And before they left, it was kind of like the end of the day. And before they left to drive back up to Santa Barbara, they, just said, hey, can we pray for you? And so kind of everybody in the living room got around, and I don't honestly remember anything that they prayed, but while they were praying, I just felt kind of like this phrase, like over and over in my head and my heart was saying like God was trying to tell me, like, I was good yesterday and I'm still good today. Like, I was good yesterday and I'm still good today. And I think that, like, step by step, I've tried to just trust in my faith of the promises that God can work all things for good. And so many times people take that kind of cliche biblical quote out of context, like, oh, well, if you believe in God, good things are going to happen. I don't think that's actually like in scripture, but there is a promise that God can work all things, even the bad things, even the horrific, awful things, can work those together for good. And I think the ways that I've seen that happen in the 8 years since, I don't think I'll ever get to a point where I say, oh yeah, I'd choose that. Sometimes you hear, people say like, oh, I'm so glad I got cancer because here's what I learned. Like, I mean, just being honest, like, I don't think I'm going to get to the point where I say I'm glad that happened because of this. At the same time, I can see a lot of good that has been worked through the situation, including the way that this community in Santa Barbara on so many different levels, like whether it was, my team at the time, my coaching staff, like kind of that inner circle, my friends, my church, the Westmont community, the Santa Barbara community as a whole. It was really extraordinary the way that people came around me and my daughter. And when I share my story and I talk about my story, honestly, like, that's when I get the most choked up and still have the most emotion, is just thinking about the gratitude I have for the people that walked with me through the darkness. I told you it just felt dark. But I wasn't alone, and people came out of the woodworks and they helped when I didn't even ask for help, and they were there, every step of the way. And I think that I share, and in fact I saw, as I was getting ready for this, I just pulled up your guys' website, and I think there was like a little snippet, and I think you'll resonate with what I'm about to say. But, one of my favorite kids' books I would read to Alexis was, Going on a Bear Hunt. Do you know this book? Going on a bear hunt, I'm going to get a big one.
Right.
And then it's like, a swamp. You can't go over it.
Right.
You can't go under it. You've got to go through it.
Right.
And I just think with hard things, sometimes like we have to go through, like the only way is through.
The only way out is through.
But I think that to know that you're not alone as you're walking through can help us, take steps as we get there,
And Alexis is her name.
Yeah.
She's 8.
She is 8 now, yeah. In
How's she
third
doing?
grade. She's thriving. I'm so grateful. So grateful, yeah. Yeah.
So that happens. 7 weeks later, Alexis is born. And then a lot of people, would have taken a sabbatical, and you decided to coach. And you, the end of the story is you win a national championship. And at one point, I mean, there's an article, by the way, if you're watching this, there's an article by Bill Plaschke of the Los Angeles Times, which is incredible. Google it. But it was powerful to hear him describe. I mean, you have a baby, so you have this army of women who are helping you with the baby.
Yeah, we called them her sometime moms. Her sometime moms. Yeah.
And then so she's on the bus with you in the car seat, going to games.
Oh yeah.
These women are helping you during practice. I mean.
Oh yeah.
And then it culminates in fact, when you won one of these tournaments and you're cutting down the nets, you've got a baby in your arm. on the
Yeah.
as you're cutting the nets down, or
Yeah.
trying to.
Yeah, I did that, I think, when we won the GSAC championship, cutting down the nets, and I thought, oh, baby, scissors.
Right.
There's no hand to hold on, but anyway,
Right.
we survived that and other things. Yeah, that was a remarkable journey, a remarkable year. I think it's more remarkable when you know, like, our team, like the logistics around the team too, because we had just graduated like 80% of our scoring and rebounding the year
Really?
before. So we weren't like projected to, I mean, we had an All-American, best player in the country, Olympian, and Tuğçe Janetez, who's from Turkey. And so we had her coming back, but other than her, it was really just kind of, a bunch of really hard working, kind of pull up your bootstraps kids, and that just
like
wanted
you.
to fight. and they, to know, not just like, oh, we won the national championship because that was the year you just had this incredible team, right? Like, it wouldn't have been the year I would have picked, or anyone would have picked that said, oh yeah, it probably would have been the year before that. And we made it to Elite 8 that year. But to make that run all the way to the national tournament was amazing. We wouldn't have been able to do it without so many people around us. But even, during, as we kind of started making the march through the national tournament, we had to win 5 games in 6 days, which is so much harder than the NCAA tournament, where you get like 2 games and you got a week to prepare.
Right.
I mean, it's every day, and the turnaround time is quick on scouts, and you're up all night prepping for the next game. And as we kind of started to make that journey through those games, it became pretty inevitable that everybody, that something special was happening. Like, things were just coming together at the right time.
Yeah.
We played a team in the round of 8 to go to the Final Four that year that had come to our place in December and beat us by 32 points on our home court. And we played them again in the national tournament that same year and ended up beating them.
Wow.
To go to the Final Four. Then in the Final Four, we played the undefeated number 1 overall ranked team. And that was the only game of the whole tournament we won by double digits. Every other game was like 1 or 2 possessions, but then the team we should have, that was the heaviest favored, we beat by double digits,
Wow.
And in fact, my one of my assistant coaches now, Jill Heckman, who was Wilbur at the time, she was a captain on our team that year when we won the national championship. She banked in a 3 in that game against
Really?
the number 1 team in the Final Four, and I just thought, we're supposed to win this game. Like, something is going right. Everything is going right for us,
That gives me chills.
Yeah.
Bill Plaschke actually said this is beyond the Cinderella story.
Mm-hmm.
Cinderella doesn't do, in that article he says, you want March Madness? This whole season has pretty much been insane, said Westmont guard Larissa Hensley. You're looking for one shining moment? There have been so many tears this year, Westmont forward Kelsey Sampson said, but there's also been so much joy. I read, again, going back to Alex, you got back to his office, and you're going through his office preparing for his memorial service, and you notice 2 Post-it notes that are stuck to the wall that you'd never seen before. One read, encourage the oppressed, defend the cause of the fatherless, and plead the case of the widow. And the other one, be strong and courageous, and do the work. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord God, my God, is with you. What did that mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy because his office is in the same building as mine. He was a kinesiology professor, and athletics kines were in one building. I can see his office. I was in there like every day. And he was a cyclist, a competitive cyclist, and so he had some posters up of some cycling posters. And I went in there that day to try to find this picture for the memorial service, and I see these Post-its that I'd never seen there before. And again, it's kind of weird, right? Because it's not like we're expecting. We weren't expecting anything to happen. We weren't thinking of this surgery as potentially life-threatening at all. And yet I go in there and I see that, and the first Post-it I read is about, like, defend the cause of the fatherless and plead the case of the widow. And I'm like, whoa, that is crazy. My mom's with me, and we both just start immediately crying, and then I look at the Post-it next to it, And, you know, my mom says, like, these are his last words to you, like, to be strong and courageous and to do the work and to not be afraid or discouraged, that his God was going to be with me. And that really, that verse became kind of the focal point for the whole team that year. I always have a theme for the team. And so it became, you know, we talked about strength, courage, and doing the work as like kind of our themes for that year. And those were the things that we talked about. Those are the things we focused on. And really, like, the big picture was way too overwhelming to like think about, like, oh yeah, how are we going to get through this? A lot of times, you know, like 2020 has felt overwhelming, like how we deal with all the different things that are coming at us. And one of the phrases I've always kind of said to my team more than any other, even before all this kind of stuff happened, was I would always say, the little things make the big things happen. I just think it's like a really important philosophy in basketball, but also in life, right? Like this paying attention to detail, like the little things make the big things happen. And so I've just found in like situations where I feel overwhelmed and it just seems kind of too big, that like if you can just narrow it down to what can I do right now to try to be my best, to maximize my opportunities, my potential, my skill set, and be the best I can be right now. And then, you know, for us that year, it became like, how do we just be our best today? We didn't even, you know, most every year teams do goal setting. We didn't even set a goal to win a championship. It was like our goal we set was like compete each day, like just be our best each day. And then it was like, if we can string together enough of those best days, then I really believe like you have the potential to overcome and do things that you might, you know, not think you're really capable of doing.
Wow.
One of my favorite quotes I'll just share because I think it's so great is actually, I didn't know this quote at the time. He hadn't said it yet. Dick Bennett, Virginia men's basketball. They lost in the first round of the NCAA tournament. They were the first number 1 seed to lose to a 16 seed. This is a few years back. And he said in that press conference afterwards, he said, I believe that adversity, when used correctly, can buy you a ticket to a place you never would have gone otherwise. And the next year they come back and they end up winning the national championship, right? And so I just think, you know, obviously we weren't thinking like, hey, yeah, this is awesome, bring on the adversity, right? But I think that when we're in it, if we can approach it, like if we can learn to respond correctly to it and see it as this like crucible opportunity to like be refined and to grow and to be stretched in ways, to be creative in ways you might not have had to be creative before, that it can buy you a ticket to a place you maybe never would have even gone otherwise, you know?
Powerful.
So
wow. That's my mom's favorite verse. Romans 8:28. All things work together for good. And when you go through something like this, you're really thinking about all things?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah. It's not really feeling like that right now.
Right,
This isn't feeling so good.
It's an amazing story, Kirsten. It's powerful. I think somebody should make a movie out of this, actually. Like you know?
There's been a decent amount of interest in that.
Is there really?
Books. Yeah. So we'll see if I can, you know, not a lot of margin in my life right now to try to, but I think it's a great idea. It could happen down the road here.
Like, did you see McFarlane? Remember that movie, McFarlane?
Yeah.
I can see I can see that.
Yeah.
Be strong and courageous. I think that's a great word for people who are experiencing loss, like you have. But it's powerful what's happened, and lots of lives have been touched. And you know, you've been Coach of the Year. You won a national championship. The favorite awards that you've gotten, and for me, is the Pat Summitt Most Courageous Award.
Yeah, for sure.
I thought, that's perfect.
Yeah.
So, thanks for coming.
Absolutely.
Thanks for sharing your story. And
great to be here.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
All right.
We'll see you next time.